Now, before we finish and get to the one final point, I want to talk about the for our good part just for a minute, okay? I want to talk about this. So all things God promises to work together for our good. He promises that. Here's the problem. What we often hear is, I'm going to like everything God does. God promises, I'm going to work all things for your good. But what we hear, I'm going to like everything that God does. But that's not what he means. There are many things that are good for you that aren't necessarily enjoyable. Kids, that's what we call kale, okay? Like it's supposedly good for you, but it ain't enjoyable, right? Colonoscopy exams are good for you, but I never met anybody who's like, yes, today's the day. Awesome. No, of course not. Never met a person who looked forward to one. The promise is not that all of it's enjoyable. Not that all of it is something you're looking forward to or enjoying or looking back on with great pleasure. The promise is that it's for our good. Not that it'll be enjoyable. And this is a really important point to make. Because sometimes when something that isn't enjoyable comes along, in fact, quite the opposite of enjoyable that comes along, it's ordained by God, and we think that somehow God has left us, that God has abandoned us, that he's broken his promise to us because we're in misery, because we're in pain, because we're broken, our hearts are broken. And somehow God has broken his promise to us because of this. This is not the case. Christian, he is making you. He is shaping you into the image of Christ. And some of that is a blast. Some of that is going to be the best days of your life here on earth. But some of that is quite unpleasant. But all of it is for your good. All of it. All of it's part of the plan. When I talk with children, I use the illustration of cookies. So think about back to the days you're making cookies with your mom. I used to try every ingredient, okay? You don't have the physique I have without trying every ingredient, and I always did, okay? So the brown sugar, making cookies with mom, the brown sugar tastes a lot better than the baking soda. But both of them are necessary for cookies. You can't have one without the other. So there's times in life when we enjoy the brown sugar, but the baking soda is part of it too, and you don't have cookies without both of them. So some of it's enjoyable that God brings. Much of it is. Sometimes a lot of it is, but some of it isn't. Sometimes a lot of it isn't. But all of it, God is working for our good. One of the eye-openers for me in the area of death, like how is this promise even good in death? N.D. Wilson, he's got two fantastic books out there. I would really encourage you to read Notes from a Tilt-A-Whirl and then Death by Living. Death by Living is absolute. They're both great, but it's fantastic. And he points out in his book how that for the Christian, even death is mercy. It's mercy. Yes, it's part of the curse. We weren't originally intended with death in mind. Death is a result of the fall because of sin. We all die. The wages of sin is death. It's a consequence of sin. But God, working everything good for the believer, now that we have these fallen bodies living in this fallen world, he has also seen to it that death is a mercy. Now, how is that possible, Jason? Well, here's Wilson. Mortality is a consequence of sin, but it's also a gift, a mercy. It's a kindness. Death is grace. Can you imagine a fallen and corrupt human race that has no end? Dark burdens that you carry that have no finish line? Because of death, we can run the good race. We can fight the good fight. Completion exists. What kind of world would it be if Hitler never died? What kind of world would it be where you live with your infirmities for eternity? You just continuously, decade after decade and century after century, continue to degrade because of age. There's mercy even in death. I heard this firsthand a couple weeks ago with our dear member John Shelton, who just passed away. And he passed away originally because of a fall that he took. and he had a big fight in the hospital trying to recover, but it just didn't happen. And talking with Nettie at the wake, she in tears said to me, Pastor Jason, he was in so much pain the last week. He was in so much pain. In the end, it was mercy for him to die. So even death for the believer is mercy. I realize that for us sometimes in our health and in our vigor right now, we can't even possibly imagine, but I'm telling you that maybe someday you're going to understand what I'm saying, that even death will be mercy. It will be the end of the race. It will be the new heaven, the new earth forever with the lion lamb. It is mercy. Even death is covered in all things. So because it is, run well, finish strong.